So as most of you know, the Google Pixel 4a was a phone that Google pushed out last year, and it was one of my favorite phones of last year, to be honest. It was very cool, had a lot of capability. It definitely wasn't perfect, but for that price tag, it really wasn't a bad phone. And we're about over a year into it, and I've already done, I think, a 1 year later review of it. It's a great phone. I'm still gonna tell you, if you want to still pick it up, I would say go for it. But I will tell you, the Google Pixel 6, which is a couple $100 more than this one, is about like $200 more than this. It is a very good value, and I would recommend picking that phone up more than this one. But this device is still pretty good looking, and it's still pretty capable. The front of it has that 5.81-inch OLED panel, and it's full HD, and even last year I was saying the same thing, but it's still a very good looking panel. Without a doubt, if you're somebody who wants to go and pick up this phone and move on with their life, this is a very decent option, and it is one of my favorite things about this phone. You can just pick it up and not have to worry about too much, at least in terms of the display. It's not 120 Hz or anything, but it's still a pretty good looking panel. Now you do have the USB Type-C port and headphone jack in this phone too, and you do have that back with that camera. Now it is a plastic built phone, so it doesn't feel the best, and it doesn't feel the most premium thing in the world. But like I mentioned, when you have a phone like the Google Pixel 4a, you're not buying a $1,000 flagship. You're not even buying a $1,000 flagship from last year that's now discounted. You're buying a budget phone. It was a budget phone when it first came out, and it's still a budget phone. So you have to give it some slack in that area, in my opinion. Now the camera on this thing is still fairly good. 12.2 megapixel back camera and an 8 megapixel front facing camera, only 4K at 30 on the back and only 1080p at the front. And I guess the only good thing is like the Pixel 6 still has the same front camera as this thing, although the back cameras are completely different. I did compare this phone against the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 5a, and I pretty much saw, as I expected, that the Pixel 5a and the Pixel 6 cameras are better, but this thing isn't that bad, and you do have to give it some credit in that sense. I think for the fact that this phone's still having some capability in the camera, and for it being as pretty good as it is, I think that's a pretty good thing, and I'm actually pretty happy about it. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does mean it's good enough, at least for my case. Now software wise, this is again one of the biggest assets for this type of device. When you get a phone like the Google Pixel 4a, you are getting stock Android, and it is without a doubt one of my favorite things about this phone. You can pick it up and not have to worry about it in terms of a software standpoint. So what does that mean? Well, pretty much if you're picking up this phone, you're guaranteed software updates for a certain amount of years, much more than other devices, and you're guaranteed stock software, which is one of my favorite things about this phone. So usually the software is one of the biggest things I complain about a phone with, and in this case, it is not the case at all. So the 4a, even when it's done getting support, it's still going to get probably custom ROMs and stuff like that, so you're going to be set for many, many years. So in terms of that, you're pretty much set there. Now, performance wise, like I mentioned, this phone didn't have like the craziest, Snapdragon processor when it first came out, but that's totally expected. When you have a phone like this, it's not going to be the greatest, in and out phone of all time. So I think that's totally predictable, and I think that's totally okay. But with a phone like the Pixel 6, it's definitely getting up a notch, and it's definitely much faster in pretty much every single area. But this phone with 6 gigs of RAM is still good, and like I mentioned, I think that's one of the best things about this phone. The performance and the stability of this phone is still very good. It's not perfect, but I think it's good enough for the most part. So that covers it up there. The battery life was also pretty good when it first came out, and it's definitely gotten better throughout time as well. It's definitely not gotten worse. I wish it did get maybe a little bit better, but it wasn't even bad when it first came out, so I don't really have too much to complain about it in terms of a battery standpoint. So in terms of that covers it up there. And to be honest, I think this phone is still completely worth it for sure. It's not perfect, but I do think if you're somebody who's in the market for a phone like this, you can't really go wrong with the Google Pixel 4a in my opinion. So in terms of that covers it up there. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.